around, who's using it. So does anybody want to take a guess at how long fire's been around?
Fire good.
What do you think?
All the time.
All the time? Okay.
1,000 years.
1,000 years? Anybody else want to take a guess?
Do you mean how long it's existed?
Okay. What did I?
Do you mean how long it's existed or how long man's been able to control it?
Either.
Good question.
So that's
From
it
the
was a
beginning
trick
of
question,
time,
and you're
probably
catching
its
me on it.
existence. Yeah.
Okay, so fire has been around from the basics of time. Because lightning is a form of fire. If it strikes something dry, you're going to have a fire. For how long man's actually been able to use it and control it, it's still being debated. They're arguing in between 260,000 years ago, which is modern considered to historical times. Considering if we were put on a time scale, humans have only been around since the light bulb been invented. If you were to stretch life out on a time, very short period is how long people have been around. But again, debate 260,000 years to 1.5 billion years ago. So it depends on the historian you're talking to. The first humans to use it were called Homo erectus. They were the first ones to stand upright, which erectus is standing up straight. And so you have, those are the first humans that we have actual evidence of them having like little fireplaces and tools to help start those fires. So we've had it around for a very long time, but if we're talking in terms of how long it's been in nature, you're talking lightning, wildfires, that type of thing. So people of all types use it. Native Americans used it. So if you read a lot of history books, actually talk about Native Americans, and Lewis and Clark have made notices of this, that Native Americans used fires to help burn down the grasslands after the buffalo and bison had moved out, and then they'd move on to the next area. Fires are actually a natural part of the environment, and the fact that they revive the area. When they burn, it adds nutrients to the soils. So here at Ponca, we actually burn every part of our park on a rotation of every 3 years. So if you're up towards the old oak trail on our old rustic cabins, you'll notice that there's a lot of new grass, but if you start to get down to the ground, it's been burnt. We burn it earlier this spring, so you burn in the fall, in the spring. And so when you come back, a different part of the park will be burned every year to help add nutrients to the soil. It also prevents really crazy fires. That's why California has such a hard time with fires, is because they haven't done controlled burns and they have so much fuel just hanging around that when a wildfire happens, or if a cigarette or a spark's been put out by a human in another way, they have a crazy wildfire that ends up causing a lot of deaths. So we've been using it for good and for bad, for both ways. And so what I'm going to focus on is how we're going to be responsible in building fires for our fun camping use, because we all want to roast marshmallows, right? That's the whole reason everybody comes to these programs, is the food incentives that we start to build. So, what are some of the challenges of building a fire when you're making one? So everybody said that they were pretty good. If I could give them wood, newspaper, and a match, you could get one started. But for those of you who tend to struggle with that, what are some of the additional challenges of getting a fire started?
The wind might blow it.
The wind is a big one. So you got the first one right off the bat. Awesome job.
Damp wood.
Damp wood, so damp fuels. Okay. Wet supplies. What else? Another really big one.
No matches.
No matches, no supplies. Yep. Rain, perfect. Okay, so those are the three big challenges. There are, of course, many more challenges, like not having the supplies whatsoever. But those are the three big ones that we're going to focus on, and I have different types of skills that I'll show you for each of them. So I do have one of the traditional methods, and I can kind of show you this later. But this is really one of the first, earliest ways that we knew that they started a fire. So you have a piece of wood that's been kind of ground down, and you have a starter plank, so one that's usually dry, it's been exposed. If you just try and put this on a side of a tree with just some bark, it's not going to work, because the exterior of the tree, the bark, is meant to protect the tree. So if you're trying to do anything with bark that hasn't been dried or stripped away from the tree, it's not going to work, because that wood is too wet, and it's also going to be the protective layer, so it's very difficult. So you got to strip it. So when you're building a fire, always use the inner portion of the wood. Don't put the bark to the fire, put the open side to the fire. It'll help catch it better. So with this, you'll notice that this one's been pretty well used. You stick it down on the ground. Usually you're going to put your foot on top of it. You're going to take this, you're going to wrap it into that string. I can get this to work, it's pretty tight. There we go. You stick that down, you stick it on the wood, and the fun part is you have to start moving it back and forth and rotating that stick in the same spot multiple times until you start getting a spark. So, very labor intensive way, but it's been around for many, many years for getting it done. So if you want to try with it later, you're more than welcome to. I would suggest choosing a hole that's already been started for you, so it's a little bit easier, and then you can try starting it later. But I do have this one available. And then does anybody want to take a guess at what the next oldest is? Flint and steel. Perfect. So I have traditional flint and steel here. I have only been able to get them work a handful of times. I can always get sparks, but I haven't been able to get a big enough spark to start a fire. But yes, you have your flint, your piece of stone, your piece of steel, and you strike it until you get it to work. So I do have these available if you wanted to try this later on as well. But with wind, just going with the wind and these challenges that you start. Fuel.
And spark.
Oxygen, fuel, and a spark. So, good teamwork here, girl. Awesome. The reason why the fire triangle became very important when you're working with wind is the fire triangle is an equilateral out, so it ends it. It collapses that side of the triangle. Same is true if you have too much fuel, or usually a spark is pretty general. But the fact that you have to have it pretty well balanced. So that's why you move on to the second type, the 3 types of sizes for wood. So does anybody know what it is? Starts with a T is the first one.
Tinder.
Tinder. And then you said the second one already, the K.
Kindling.
Kindling. And then your last one's the pretty obvious one. Why
Dry.
you forget it?
Dry wood.
Dry wood, your logs. Okay? If you have logs down there, it's like trying to start that plank on fire again. You have a lot of wind coming in, it's harder to get a spark, so you start with levels. You have your tinder. What is tinder? It's another question. Tinder is something that catches on fire very, very easily, but it burns super fast. So the way I describe it to younger kids is, you're not going to get a s'more. If you have grass, and you just have a pile of grass, the minute you get it lit, and you go to put your marshmallow on a stick, you come back, it's gone. Okay? So it's something that lights really easy, but burns super fast. You're not going to be able to make any food or have any heat off of it. So what you add is kindling, your sticks, dried bark, something that a little harder to start on fire, but it burns slower. So you're going to have more options of making that s'more, cooking that hot dog. However, it's not going to burn super long because it's not a lot of fuel. So then you have to put your logs on top. Then you have your fire going. Then we can have the big camp out and eat a whole bunch of food. Have that fun. And so that is the second part. And then you have a bunch of structure types. I'll get to that later if we have time. But yeah, with wind, you got to talk about your hole. Blocking the wind off, making sure your triangle is fulfilled, and making that happen. I know you guys didn't think there was that much science behind building a fire, right? Yeah, there's actually science that can go into it. So your second part was your easy part of building a wind block. Hey, Mom, stand in front of this fire for me so you don't lose it. So that's when people started to get burnt. You start realizing that you might be able to use a leather log to help act as the wind block just so you can get your spark going and then slowly building out from your tinder to your kindling to your logs. Now, I'm done talking. We get to have some fun, okay? So your next part is your rain. This is the main what you're going to be doing here today. So with rain, what are some ways that you think you can start a fire with rain happening?
Build a shelter over the fire.
Build a shelter over it, okay? Gotta be careful with that. That's the reason why teepees had holes on the tops and why a lot of log cabins had chimneys or sod. You have to find a way to ventilate it. Otherwise, you're choking on the smoke, or you can exhaust it because you're not giving it enough oxygen. Okay, so what else? Build a shelter to protect it. What are some fire or rain resistant items?
Leaves.
Leaves. Okay, so those will burn pretty quick if they're dry. If they're wet, you get a lot of smoke.
Sticks.
So that kind of goes to your wet supplies. You get a lot of smoke if you can still start it on fire, but it gets really smoky. This is what we're gonna build today.
Oh yeah.
An egg carton candle. Okay? So you have egg cartons in front of you. It only works in the event that you have this instead of the styrofoam. You can't do this with the styrofoam, which I know isn't being sold a lot anymore. But you can do a lot with these egg cartons. Now what's sitting in a big pile in front of you? Lint. So if you guys help with laundry, you know exactly what it is. The others are going, what is this stuff? So, lint gets to be kind of interesting. It can be a tinder or it can be a kindling depending on what you threw in your laundry. If it's cotton, it's tinder. If you have wool, wool's a lot more difficult to burn and it's also going to burn a different color. Okay? Dog hair, human hair. I have a pet at home. I know how bad she sheds. If you get that in your lint, it's also going to smell really bad when it burns. So be careful on what you're using. But what you do is you take your lint, you're going to put it in your egg carton, so you guys get to choose on how much you put in. Try and leave a little bit of space because what we're going to do next is I have candle wax in the kitchen. It's been melted already. We're going to go and top those off. There are markers in front, so we don't lose which one's actually yours. Write your name on your egg carton, so that way we can make sure yours gets back to you. And what we do, since we're doing large groups, we just go and buy one of the big candles from Walmart, shave it up, and put it on a pot, stick it on the oven, you're good to go. Just make sure it's a pot and your utensils or something you're okay with not using again, or don't mind the taste of candle wax. So we use stuff that we use for this particular activity. But you can make this at home with any pot, any oven. You make it over a fire, but it may burn a little too hot and burn your wax. So when you guys are done and you have written your names on it and stuffed it to how you would like, you can come up front here. We're going to pour some candle wax in it, and then we're going to sit it over here by the window to cool while we do the rest of our activities. Okay, ready? I'm going to hold on to it since this is super hot. Okay? Go ahead and pass this around. But the way on how this works is when you start a fire, you'll still have your logs and your kindling around it, so your newspaper, but this is going to act like your tinder and your kindling too. So you're going to start the egg carton, start at the bottom, burn it on the bottom. As it heats up, that candle wax is going to melt and expose that lint. That lint is going to be a slow burn, and so it'll catch your logs on fire, even if it's raining, because that candle wax is going to repel water. So that's how this works and helps with the rain. So you can pass that around. They're really nice and easy to store. You can put them in a pill box and take those with you. Nice and easy to store. Put in a backpack. I keep them on the outer portion of my backpack. 2 years ago, we were downpouring during our expo, and that was the only way we got our s'mores ready to go, was through these nifty little carton ideas. So that's one of the ways that you can have it. Now you guys will get to have yours to take home. Hopefully it won't rain tonight, so you don't have to use them, but you're certainly welcome to. But yeah, you'll be good to go, and all you need to do is buy eggs, do your laundry, which you're going to be doing on a regular basis, I hope, and then have some candles around, which will be nice and easy to have. And the next part of a rain plan is a cotton ball and Vaseline. So, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I got sick, my mom had this wonderful petroleum jelly and Vicks vapor rub to rub all over my chest and my feet to help out with my colds. Also great fire starting tools. Don't tell that to my sister, she's a pyro. So you have cotton balls around and you have the Vaseline. Cotton balls would be considered your tinder. You light this on fire, it's going to be gone within 30 seconds. Okay? Add Vaseline to it, you slow down the burn. Vaseline is also made out of an oil, so it's repelling water at the same time. So I do have this available when we go outside and you want to start your own fires. If you want to try this method, you're more than welcome to. So I have a couple of those here. Also a great way. And Typically, people are carrying around cotton balls with them on a usual basis, and Vaseline's always nice to have around, especially if you're working with kids a lot, or if you have hummingbird feeders. Those are also great for keeping away bugs. If you're trying to keep them off of your hummingbird hooks, you should just put Vaseline down the sides of them, and it'll keep the ants away because they'll get stuck. So those are a few of our rain ideas on how to keep that away. Another supply that's really nifty to do, stick dryer lint inside of a toilet paper roll and then wrap it in newspaper. You have your tinder on the outside as your newspaper, helps start it on fire really quick, and your toilet paper roll and your dryer lint slow down that burn so you can put logs on it. Really easy to store. You're gonna have toilet paper rolls galore. We have a box this tall back there full of them. So if you guys want to make this later, you're more than welcome to, but another nifty way of getting a fire starter built. It's great for especially small kids that you don't want to actually play with fire without you. You can still build these nice little kits for them so that they're prepared to do that. Wet supplies, pill bottle. Boy Scouts, anybody in here Boy Scout? Used to be Boy Scout? This is their favorite trick. Have a medium-sized pill bottle. On the outside, you're going to have your striker for your matches. They prefer to use waterproof matches and have them inside the pill bottle container. Then they'll have dryer lint in it, pieces of an old t-shirt cut up, and at the bottom, I'll pass this around so everybody can see, I have a pine cone. Does anybody know why I might have a pine cone or why I might caution against the use of a pine cone?
You might have a pine cone because it burns really slowly.
Yep, so they're pretty good. They're great fire starters, so if you're in an area with a lot of pine cones, this also goes back to why fire is a natural part. Nebraska pine cones do not need fire to explode, but a lot of other states have pine trees that require fire to open their pine cone. So when a pine cone's closed, that means there's a lot of moisture in it, and they don't want that. Why wouldn't they want a pine cone to have lots of water in it? What is a pine cone? It's the seeds. So if you drop a pine cone underneath the parent tree and it's wet, it's bad news because it starts to spread those seeds and then you have competition going. They want that pine cone to travel with a squirrel or with a deer, get away, and then dry up. And when that pine cone opens, it expels all of that seeds all over. It explodes. That's the reason why I'm going to caution you against using pine cones unless you've dried them yourselves. If you have a pine cone that holds water and you throw it into your campfire, it will explode the fire out at you. So be very careful about using pine cones unless you have dried them yourselves. My pine cone in the pill bottle has been dipped in candle wax. That's why it's closed. It's because that sealed that candle wax and that moisture inside of it. It shouldn't explode because as that candle wax melts off of the pine cone, it's going to be drying out. That candle wax is going to be falling off and it won't explode. But it's a slow burn because that candle wax is going to be repelling the water and it's going to be helping that pine cone catch on fire. So you can use pine cones, but be cautious when using those pine cones, okay? So the pill bottle is a great method. Again, Boy Scouts absolutely love that because it's easy to throw in a backpack and carry it with you and you have all the supplies you need for starting a fire. Pine cone we just talked about. Orange peels. How many of you eat oranges? I'm not a fruit person, so I had to have a friend eat an orange for me. So, orange peels, flammable. So, if you dry them out in your oven, not only do they make your house smell really good when that's happening, but they're a slow burn. So you can start them on fire, and then you're going to have a wonderful citrus scent coming from your campfire. But it's also going to be a slow burn. It's like a type of kindling, so it'll be a slow burn to help you get your fire started. Also, most mosquitoes don't like citrus smells, so throwing these in there will help with the bugs on occasion. Depends on how fresh your oranges were. These ones are less than 6 months old. So if you guys want to try burning these, they are a little bit harder to get started on fire. That's why they're classified as a kindling. But you guys can try and start these on fire here in a bit. So that kind of covers all of my little cheats here today. If you want to try and starting different things on fire, I have these little kits in front of you. We're going to go outside. So you should not start a fire outside of a fire ring or a controlled environment. That's why I have these nifty little tins. They have different types of tinder on the inside of them. It's easy to twist and turn rather than just trying to pop open. And so they have those different types there. And then on top, we have a magnesium striker, which is the modern day of making a fire besides a lighter. If you want an actual part of a challenge rather than just lighting stuff on fire with a lighter, you get magnesium strips. They're $1 in most cases. So what you do is there's magnesium on top. You scrape that off and try and do this where everybody can see. Hold it at an angle, so you want your index finger underneath it. You want to stick it in the middle of that tub, otherwise your sparks are too high up to fall into your tinder. Stick it in that tub, hold it on each side, so you have your thumb running along the side and your other finger running along the side. Hold it down, take your striker, strike down fast and hard. Okay? So hold it at, this is an acute angle, for those of you who don't know what it is, under 90 degrees. Acute angle. Hold it at an acute angle, push down hard and fast on it, okay? So I have a few spares. I've divided it up into groups of 3. If you'd like to divide up, I have 2 extra cans. I have 2 more up here. And if you'd like to try it, you're more than welcome to come outside. You have to keep your fire in the tin. If it starts going pretty good, that's why there's a lid, because then we collapse that fire triangle by killing the oxygen and the spark to it, okay? So make sure if it gets going real good to slap that lid on so we don't have my whole backyard started on fire, okay?